Hello, my name is Kirioth, and today we're going to talk about Forge World. Namely, the stuff I like, the stuff I don't like. And as always, I want to know what you like and what you don't like in the comments. You've got to let me know. I always read them, you know this. I say this all the time, but today it might actually be true. This may well be a slightly shorter video, but that's only because I have a fairly horrendous cough, and I don't want to be choking down the microphone at you. So I apologise if this video is full of cuts, or if it just, this is the last you ever see of me because my throat has collapsed in on itself and I've just passed away peacefully in the night. Anyway, let's talk about Forge World. So if you're not sure of what Forge World is, it's essentially an extension of Games Workshop. It's part of Games Workshop, but it's a separate site and it does separate models, except that some of the models are the same. I know, it gets a bit confusing. So, namely, stuff that you'll be familiar with that you can already get from Games Workshop is stuff like Mark III Marines. So, Space Marines in Mark III armour, Space Marines in Mark IV armour, Cataphractii armour. I think Tartarus armour is now plastic as well, isn't it? Thanks to Burning and Prospero, the Contempt Dreadnought. This is stuff that, as far as I remember, originated on Forge World with the advent of the Horus Heresy game. So, you could buy all sorts of old marks of Space Marine armour, build one of the original Space Marine Legions, and fight them against other Space Marine Legions. Awesome. Brilliant. Now, there's also things like the Deathcore Krieg. Deathcore? Death Corps. I say Deathcore, I've heard people say Corpse, but I always thought CORPS was core. But then again, it's KORP, whatever, Deathcore. Deathcore of Krieg are an Imperial Guard army, and they are absolutely awesome. In fact, what I would do is I will quickly bring up some Deathcore for you, so you can see how awesome they are, because they are. So, there we go. These are the lads, these are the Deathcore, and they look pretty damn good, as you can see. If you're in the market for awesome looking guardsmen with trench coats, gas masks, and is that more sort of World War I era sort of helmets there, then these are the lads for you. Unfortunately, you need to have a lot of money because there are 10 of them there, and that is £43, as opposed to, I believe, £18 for a set of plastic Cadians. Although, let's be honest, to say that these look better than the plastic Cadians is it's a vast understatement. So, to start out with, I will say straight away that one of the things I like about Forge World is there's a lot of stuff on there that you read about but don't necessarily see in Warhammer 40,000 itself. So, things like Venerable Dreadnoughts and so on. You kind of imagine Dreadnoughts as being personalised to each chapter, and whilst you can get like Blood Angels Dreadnoughts, everyone else kind of does with just a standard Dreadnought model. Yep, you've got Venerable Dreadnoughts as well, you've got the normal Dreadnoughts, you've got Ironclad Dreadnoughts, you've got Contempt Dreadnoughts, and that's all fine. But they all look just like a Dreadnought. They don't have that same kind of, I guess, customised feel that some of the other models do in Warhammer 40,000. And luckily, that is where Forge World, for instance, steps in, because they provide models for Dreadnoughts that you would not otherwise be able to get. So, we'll just have a quick look at the Dreadnought list. And in fact, here is straight away an excellent example. The Space Wolves Venerable Dreadnought. Now, admittedly, this is a bad example thinking about it, because you can already get a Space Wolves Dreadnought, but you get the idea. So, there's obviously more than just that. There's Space Wolves Legion Contemptor Dreadnoughts. There is a Contemptor for the Minotaurs there. Where's the other one? There's one in particular. There we go. The Ultramarines Venerable Dreadnought. I do like this one. It's fancy. It's real fancy. It looks real nice. So there is that added kind of customizability that you can do with Games Workshop, but with Forge World it is modelled on, and generally speaking they look really, really nice. There's also additional things to add extra kind of flavour to your armies in terms of things like Imperial Guard or Eldar, stuff like that. Although they do focus mainly on the Space Marine stuff. Orcs actually don't do too bad on Forge World, thinking about it. In fact, Orcs have got some quality looking vehicles on Forge World, and this remains one of my favourite models on here. That, to me, is absolutely a proper Orky tank. It's just a big hunk of metal with guns stuck on it. It looks brilliant. It looks fantastic. Really actually prefer stuff like that to things like the Battle Wagon model from Forge World, I feel like the Battle Wagon model, it looks alright, it looks kind of orky, but it doesn't look as cobbled together as I'd like, and really, you know, that kill burster, kill blaster, it just looks a lot better. If you fancy starting a Death Corps of Krieg army, there is of course a bunch of tanks that you can get for them, and if you ever wanted to pay £62 for a Lehman Russ Demolisher, they've got you covered. Now at first you're thinking, well, I know what you're thinking, 62 quid for that, what the hell is that? That is nearly double the price of a normal Lehman Russ, why is that worth it? Whether it's worth it or not is actually entirely subjective, but it is significantly different. Yep, the tracks and the side panels are pretty much the same, but everything else is different. All of that's been remodeled, the turret is different, the front is different. There's significant changes been made, and of course you get a little Death Corps of Krieg guy sticking out the top, which is always nice. Overall, the designs of the stuff that come out of Forge World is the thing that makes me appreciate them so much. Like, there's so many things in there that would be nice to see in plastic, but I can understand why they're not. They're very, I don't want to say niche, but I think they have a limited appeal even to those who already appreciate Warhammer 40,000. I'm pretty sure that's why the Horus Heresy is essentially still a mostly Forge World endeavour, is the fact that, yeah, there is going to be crossover between people who like 40k and people who want to play out battles from the Horus Heresy, but it's going to be a smaller subset of players, especially when you take into account the fact that not everyone who plays Warhammer 40,000 necessarily plays Chaos or Space Marines. And if you don't play either of those armies, I'm guessing, and this is just a guess, it's just conjecture, you're not going to look at a whole new bunch of Space Marine releases on Forge World in resin, not in plastic, and go, oh yeah, I've got to jump all over that. I've just never really got that impression from people who play other armies, that they've suddenly gone, more expensive tactical marines, you say? Why, yes, I will partake. It's just one of those things. They also, I mean, this is, every time I look at this model, I have to not buy it, mainly because I can't afford to, but they do provide more knights as well, and to say that the Forge World knights look a bit more spry than their Games Workshop counterparts is putting it mildly, but it's just a fantastic model. By and large, I find that the stuff that Forge World designs looks pretty damn good, with the exception of things like Gabriel Angelos, which just doesn't look very good at all. I don't know what they did with his face, but they severely mangled it. His head looks like a potato. I don't know what happened there. But by and large, they do an excellent job with their designs, and the designs are, I feel, different enough to warrant them commanding a slightly higher price. There is also the fact that, you know, resin is a more difficult material to work with, and I believe the casting process for resin and for plastic is slightly different, and that plastic molds tend to last a bit longer, which might be why, it might be a contributing factor as to why Forge World stuff is that much more expensive. You know, the material used, the method used to make the models in the first place, and of course the fact that it's kind of more of a niche thing. That being said, I see so many Death Corps armies, I'm starting to wonder why Games Workshop haven't taken the mantle over for that, although it could just be that they know people will buy it from Forge World anyway, because the models are just that good. My own personal experience with Forge World, well, it extends to a few things. A couple of Dreadnought weapons, like on this chap, and before I show you this guy, we'll just finish the positives. The positives are that, generally speaking, the designs are really good. The sculpts, at least, are very, very good. The kind of, I guess, not exclusive nature of it, but it could just be the price, the fact it's so much more expensive, kind of lends an air of having some sort of collector's item, which I know sounds very odd in the context of 40k, because you collect stuff in 40k, that's what you do. But Forge World, there seems to be an added element of that to it. Could just be because it's so damn expensive that you have to treat it as something special, because, well, you'd be unhappy if you didn't. I will say customer service is very good. I've returned, sadly, several items and had other stuff sent out in replacement because they haven't been up to scratch, so the customer service side of things has always been pretty good. And they do have a hell of a lot of stuff for converting Space Marines. You don't necessarily need to go third party if you want to start putting together a Space Marines force with a unique look, because there are so many different parts on Forge World. There's also weapons for various tanks and various dreadnoughts and God knows what else. It's not just for the person with a bit of extra cash to burn when they want a new miniature. It can actually be used genuinely to help convert an army. For instance, my Primaris army, which is in a box somewhere because it's being transported around at the moment, is got in, like, none of the heads on that army came with the box, came with the Dark Imperium box. They all came from Forge World because I use the Night Lord heads, and they look fantastic, and the quality is fantastic. The design is fantastic. As a design place, I think Forge World is absolutely well, I was going to say fantastic, but I keep repeating myself. It's really good. There are, however, downsides to all of this. The first downside is it's resin, and I absolutely hate working with resin. I cannot stand working with resin. It is a pain in the arse. It's dusty, you have to wash it before you get anywhere near it with paint, which you just don't have to do with plastic. Actually getting resin off, they're not sprues, they're more just blocks, is a royal pain. And just as a material, it is not as nice to work with as plastic. I also don't enjoy painting anywhere near as much either, which is unfortunate really, because of what I'm about to show you. The other thing is that while the designs that Forge World come up with are really, really good, sometimes the casting is just not up to standard. Sometimes it's just not there. Like, I don't know why it's not there. I don't know whether it's I've ended up with a few things that have kind of come out of molds that are towards the end of their lifespan, or what's happened. But these autocannons. This is a Blood Angels Death Company Dreadnought, which was converted. I say converted, kit bashed just to be a Mortis Dread. And these two autocannons were the third pair that I received from Forge World. The first pair, both of them had a barrel snapped when they got to me. That was not great. The second pair had on that side, on the right hand cannon, a bit of flashing that wasn't flashing. It was just a solid chunk connecting the two barrels. And then on the other side, where there was supposed to be a hole, there was just a colossal gap there. That it looked like it was loads of bubbles, and then when I poked it, it all just collapsed inwards. So something had happened with the moulding there. This was the third pair that I received, and even these are not quite great. As you can see, this one here, it's incredibly loose. The hole is just too big. It rattles around, and I did want to glue it, but that unfortunately would mean that it would make it trickier to transport the Dreadnought. I like having the arms off, which it just means that half the time he's pointing at the floor just because it's so loose. That one, in contrast, was so tight that I had to widen the hole, and it still sticks out a little bit too far because it's a bit too tight. So whilst the designs are great, the actual quality of the product can be very, very hit and miss. Very hit and miss. There's also the fact that when you look at the back of these, and I'm hoping the camera picks this up okay, they're not even. They're absolutely not even. There's like little dents and there's little flaws in the casting. One of them is just outright thicker than the other, which, given that they're supposed to just be mirror images of each other, is a tad annoying. And you've also got the fact that that side, it looks like the barrels have been drilled, and they arrived like that, which is awesome, and this side, they weren't. It can be a problem. It can be a genuine problem, and given that these autocannons were like, what, 15 quid or something? Might be less than that. Or is it this? I don't know. I'll check now. I don't want to misrepresent, having just said that they were crap. Okay, yeah, so these two autocannons were £9.50 each. So that's a little too much for me to have to send it back repeatedly and still get stuff that wasn't great. The only reason that I didn't send it back again is because I needed it to be finished, and I just dealt with the issue that I've been given. Again, on the quality front and the working with resin front, this guy That's the leader of my Strike Force Ultra, or whatever it is now, whatever it will turn out to be. And he's made out from several different things. So there's a Space Marine Centurion kit, which I believe comes with a Praetor, and I think it's in Cataphractii armor and someone else as well. It's a 2-pack, it's 2 guys. He's got that armor, he's got Tiburron, the Red Wake, Tiburron, however you don't pronounce it. Got his arms, and he's got his head as well. Shoulder pads are from Centurions, Space Marine Centurions, and the cloak is from Anvil Industries, as is the base. Can you guess, out of all of the things on here, what took the most washing and most cleaning up? I'll give you a hint, it wasn't the Anvil Industries base or the Anvil Industries cloak, it was by far this body, which was a royal pain in the arse. It took so much cleaning, and there was so much flashing that it was just untrue. Again, the designs that Forge World come out with are really good. The individual quality, sometimes just not that great, sadly. And I don't recall really having that issue with Games Workshop plastics for a long time. We all know the mess that is Failcast from Games Workshop, but when you're paying like £9.50 per gun, you kind of expect the guns to be of a decent quality. That being said, I did have an Ironclad Dreadnought from Forge World, which was absolutely perfect. Like, just completely perfect every way. There was not a single thing wrong with that. There's no flashing, there's no bubbles. It hardly required any cleaning up at all. And in terms of washing it, I dunked it in some soapy water. I was in a bit of a rush, I took it out, dried it off, and it took paint like a champ. It was brilliant. I ended up selling it, I think it was a couple of months later, because I wasn't actually using it that much. But that was absolutely fantastic. As was, it's worth saying, this thing here. Now, ignore the gnarly paint job. It was Nurglified, and then it's been de-Nurglified again, because I want it for my Primaris army. But this is a Typhon Heavy Siege tank. And this was incredibly intimidating to put together. Largely because Forge World instructions are hilarious. They are not instructions, they are suggestions. In fact, they're barely suggestions. It's basically a piece of paper that says put it together. That's it. That just has that one sentence written on it. The instructions for this were glue the tracks to the sides, which was kind of funny because the tracks are just moulded onto the sides. Didn't have to do anything, it just arrived. Like, that chunk just arrived like that for the whole thing there. It was glue the bottom on. Okay, done that. Glue that to the bottom, alright. And then on the next page, it showed the completed tank. You ever seen that meme of the owl, where it's just a circle on a circle, how to draw an owl, and then draw the rest of the fucking owl? That's what this is. It was literally, glue that bit to that bit, now do the rest of it. That was the entire instruction booklet, which was funny, but not helpful. But this, having just, complained about the guns on the Dreadnought, complained about the body for my Chapter Master over there, this was absolutely fine. I had to do a little bit of warping. There was a bit of warping on the base part, the bottom of the tank, but stick it in some warm water, give it a bit of a twist, and it ends up being back to the way it should be. I've seen a lot worse than what I got with this. In terms of being cleaned up and for detail, I can't find anything to complain about. The only thing that I will say is that when this thing arrived, and there was a giant chunk of resin, like, I want to say that thick, in a big bar across the bottom, and then I had a look online to find out how to remove that, and it said take a saw to it. That was not a great introduction to putting this tank together, because essentially the instruction reads, and I'm paraphrasing here because this is just how I read it, it essentially says, you see that thing that you just spent £109 on? Take a saw to it. Take a saw, go at it, right next to it, there's a gif, and it'll be fine. I don't like that. I don't like that. I know it's incredibly sort of please hold my hand, but if they could get rid of that shit before they send it to you, that'd be grand, because taking a saw to something that costs that much, I'm not happy about it. I don't like it. That is one other criticism, and that's just me. Other people might completely be like, just man up, get it over and done with, who cares, just do it, stop complaining. That's fine, that's fine. If you're happy to do that, that's, great. Me, personally, didn't like it. Didn't like it at all, because I was like, if I slip, I am going to be somewhere between sad and just immensely depressed. There's not going to be no upside. It's just going to be like, oh god. So, recap. I think as a sort of Games Workshop included entity, Forge World does fantastic designs. They provide variation that you cannot find in Games Workshop itself or from the Games Workshop website itself. They provide a bit of character to certain armies. They provide some extra units to armies as well, which admittedly is something else, but we're going to get into that in a different video entirely. That's not a subject for this one. This one is just model based, not rules based. Overall, the design of the stuff they come out with is pretty fantastic, but there are downsides. The cost is one. The fact that it's resin is absolutely another one. And the overall quality control, for me personally, has just not been up to scratch. You know, I've bought quite a lot of stuff from Forge World over the years, and for every model I've got that has been perfect, there's been one that's been pretty damn awful. And there's been a couple of things that I've just had to send back a couple of times before I actually got something that was decent enough to use. That shouldn't be the case when you're paying prices that high. But what I want to know is, what's your experience with Forge World? Have you used it a lot? Have you never used it? Is it too expensive? Is it worth the extra expense? Do you think their designs are actually decent? Or do you think you could just take it or leave it? I want to know what you think of them and what your experiences have been with them in the comments below. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. There's a bunch of stuff to click all over the screen, and you can do it if you like. Don't have to. There's a Patreon, subscribe, other videos, all of that stuff. You know the drill by now. I will see you for the next one. Oh, I didn't cough all the way through this. If I keep talking, I might never cough again.